You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 162. My name is Clark from 5Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. Co-hosting with me as usual is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is TradeView at Recess. Okay, so today we got a pretty cool guest on the pod. And if you're on social media, you probably know who he is already. Everyone knows him as Dappz, D-A-P-P-Z, and he is the founder of Dappz Sports. They do a lot of breaking content, but also other fun hobby videos of them at live card shows, interacting with other hobbyists and collectors, as well as interviews with hobby influencers we all know. So we're excited about getting to know Dappz and just his incredible journey in the hobby. We'll play that interview for you guys in a minute, but off the top today, I'm not sure if you guys saw Shyne's post recently. Shyne, the big-time high-end collector, but he was showing off his Julio Rodriguez Bowman Chrome superfractor, the first Bowman rookie autograph card, and it was graded a BGS 9.5 gem mint with a 10 auto. Pretty sweet card. Any guesses on how much this card will be worth today?
Ah, man. It is a beautiful card. It is a true gem plus too.
Right.
So my take on this, I would value it at based on Julio's season this year.
Which is awesome.
Which is incredible. Like, this guy's going to be fun to watch. Yeah. He's 22 years old, just remember. And he,
crazy.
30 season with 100 RBIs. Yeah. Very elite category. And just to give you context, Mike Trout probably had a better first 2 years. Or by the time he was 22 years old, Mike Trout's numbers were probably even better than Julio. So just to put it into perspective, and at the time, there was a record sale with Mike Trout's first Bowman superfractor that Vegas Dave sold for $3.9 million, right? So based on that, and that was pre-market boom. That was just right before the market boom. But I would say it should, I'm not comparing Julio with Trout. You have to see the upside in that card, but I would say it's between 1 and 2 million, I'd say.
Wow.
Okay. And because I believe at the peak, a red Julio sold for
$276,000.
There you go, $276,000. So if Mike Trout's red, I believe, sold for $474,000, somewhere around there, and his super sold for $4 million plus, I would probably place it in a similar range, but not obviously as high as Trout, because he still has to play. But, he's people are comparing him to, Ken Griffey Jr., in Seattle, right? So, and his numbers aren't off. There's an argument there as well. So Julio's the real deal, one, but it's going to be exciting to see, how he pans out, and it all depends on, the availability of that card. I'm sure if it's sold every year, the value wouldn't be as, attractive, but 2-3 years Julio has, and this is the thing, he's 22 years old. He hasn't had a season yet, and when I say his season, this is when you look at, Trout's career, you're like, okay, this was definitely his season, or his 3-4 years. This is definitely the period where he had a season. Probably 2019 for Trout, to be honest. That's when he sold it. He had 45 home runs and 100 RBIs. I think I would value it, pretty high, I guess, just because Julio's the real deal, man. He's not a B-type superstar. He's an A-type superstar. He's going to be the future of the game, right? The Ronald Acunas, the Mike Trouts, the Shohei Ohtanis, the Julio Rodriguez. That's the category, right? So, I would say 1 to 2.
Wow.
Okay.
Wasn't expecting that. None of us really know the big boy market, so we're not one to speak, but I totally would have guessed, like, if that went on auction, I would have guessed maybe 500,000, and maybe I'm being a bit light, but I feel like in this day and age, a current market, even on high end stuff, people are very weary to spend $1 million. Like $1 million has now become sort of like a big benchmark to spend on a sports card. So I think it would have to be something certainly very, very special. But we also know who the purchaser is, right? It's Shyne 150, and he has already proven himself to be very much, like, I think a lot of people criticize him and maybe view him as like a complete investor, but I don't think so. I think he's a collector, man. I think the way that you see him do breaks, and he breaks like exquisite. He just broke exquisite this past week. I don't know if you guys watched that, but he has a large appetite for risk. He doesn't care. Like he does it to enjoy it, right? And I think he clearly enjoys chasing unique and certainly cards that nobody else has, right? So like anytime there's an opportunity for him to get a one of one. So I wouldn't be surprised if like he paid what Hyung is saying, like $1 million, because obviously the guy who had the card, I would assume probably didn't even want to sell it. And Shyne had to walk in there and be like, okay, you don't want to sell it? What's the actual number? Like what number is going to get you to get rid of that card, right? So I'm sure he had to overpay. And I mean, it's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it. So, but yeah, I would have guessed 500,000, but $1 million it wouldn't surprise me if that's what it costed.
I was thinking close to 500,000-600,000 as well, just based on the last red refractor comp, right? And I didn't really think about the way Hyung did, comparing him to Trout and like to other players in general. So that's a good point that you made, Hyung. And if I was Shyne, like and the how we all feel about J-Rod, I would just sit on it. Like I could totally see it being, if it's not $1 million card now, I could totally see it being $1 million card in a few years if his career trajectory continues the way it is going right now, and like I'm looking at the stats right now, it's 31 home runs, 36 stolen bases, 100 RBIs, batting .285. Elite numbers. Can he do a 40-40 season? Yeah, for sure. Like that's very well possible, right? So I think everything's looking up for him. That being said, the follow-up question I had for you is that there was a lot of hype with J-Rod, right, going into the season, especially last season in particular. He was the face of MLB. Then it's a year later. Do you think the hype has died down enough for his value to be a good buy, or do you think you would wait a little longer?
I think you're kind of seeing it, but then his prices kind of picked up again. And I think the reason why his prices were so high is because people are expecting him to do incredible stuff right off the bat, which he did. And even this year, he came out the gates really slow. Like we're talking like everybody was off J-Rod, right? Yeah. And that's the scope of our market. It's like it runs on emotions. People think because, look at Juan Soto. Every year he's hitting 250 until June, July, and then he ends up having a pretty decent season. But by then everybody's off him. The spring training hype has died down. So it's I think his prices came down a lot, and I think he's the type of player where if he does have another massive season, you're going to see his values keep going up again, right? And if he has a poor season, or not even a poor season, but not as productive as this year, his prices are going to go down. Look at Vladdy's pricing from his MVP seasons. Those last two seasons were not MVP-esque, and his prices have come down. You look at even Acuna. The only reason why his market's back up is because he's playing the way people thought he was playing. So his prices, and look at Ohtani's, same thing. It's like when he's relevant, his prices stay. But the moment, he's not relevant, people panic and, go on to the next best thing, right? So I think you got to play the game with that context in mind. So it's if you believe in Julio long term, I think it's a good plan to lock up those big cards like the superfractors or the red autos if you could get your hands on it, at a cheaper price than what these future potential values can be, right? And I think, yeah, the $1 to $2 million like superfractor that I say about Julio, that's given that he's 3 to 5 years, he's gonna hit potentially 300 1 year with 40 home runs and 120 RBIs, 120 runs scored. He has an 8.5 WAR, like just incredible, right? So, and that's what people are expecting out of him, right? Like they're expecting him to be the next generational type player. So, I think he's gonna be a buy the next 5 years, like, but in pockets. You got to pick and choose when that timing is, right? And like I said, it all depends on your game. Some people don't have they won't sit on a card for longer than a year. Some people won't sell a card ever, right? So it's like depending on what type of game you're playing, I think there's always a good buying period and a good selling period. So it's just a matter of finding those good buying periods on a player like Julio, which is the right player.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're into the volatility game, very short term within season, I think there's good opportunity to buy J-Rod in the off season in hopes for some volatility during the season. I think if you're into J-Rod long term, I don't think the right time to buy is now. I think once he kind of exits that hype window, I think there's going to be better times to buy then. But if you're, like him kind of mentioned, if you're buying big boy cards like red refractors and stuff, I mean, those are the kind of cards you just have to take advantage whenever they pop up, right? So who's to say? But I think one thing that outside of J-Rod, and he's kind of a part of this, what's going to be interesting about baseball next year is I think there is going to be light that is, that gets put back onto guys like J-Rod and, like Tatis, like I don't think some people want to hear Tatis, but we're big on Tatis. Juan Soto, like the hyped players of yesterday, I think they could come back next year because to be honest, Ohtani took like all of the baseball market cap this year. Like any money that was available to spend on sports cards, Ohtani took it all up and he took away all of the shine of all the other, maybe outside of Acuna, he took the shine off of everybody. So I think next year baseball is going to be interesting when Ohtani doesn't have that hype. Maybe he's not pitching that year and he's batting fairly average, and then all of a sudden the other big boys then Vladdy's going to make a big comeback. Like you don't know, right? So I think it's going to be interesting for baseball next year. Might be a time to move on a lot of cards.
Sure. I hope so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Shohei's definitely not pitching next year, but watch him hit 60 homers.
Yeah. You always say something on this pod and it always comes.
Yeah. I'm all in on Shohei if his prices dip. I'm back in.
Me too.
But going back to J-Rod, the best time to buy J-Rod, I'll tell you what it is, okay? If you look at the standings, Toronto Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners, and the Texas Rangers are all half a game out of this wild card.
Close.
There's the three of them right now for the wild card race. Toronto's in, Seattle's in right now, and Rangers are technically tied with Seattle, but I guess the tiebreaker works in the Mariners' favor. Best time to buy? Gotta hope that Seattle doesn't make it to the playoffs. So, and they go golfing right away. And it's Texas-Toronto. Then you look at the prices, okay? And that's what I'm hoping for because I feel like, I still have that bitter taste of last year's playoff with the Jays between the Mariners. We should have won that game. Am I the only one that remembers this?
Oh, yeah. I should have won. That was a heartbreak. The collapse.
Ridiculous. The collapse, yeah. So I'm hoping we don't see a repeat. And it'll also be great for me to look for good J-Rod prices if Seattle doesn't make it to the playoffs this year. And sorry to all our Seattle fans out there. This is, we got to root for the Jays. So yeah, that's when you should look. But if they do make it to the playoffs, you could, I could see a good run on J-Rod prices during the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna do well. Yeah, so we'll see how things work out for the J-Rod market. And one more thing before we go on to the interview. Staying on the topic of superfractors, do you guys hear the story about the Victor Izturis superfractor, right? That was pulled by two different breakers. Yes, apparently there's two, quote, one of one superfractors out there from the 2023 Bowman Chrome baseball set, which begs the question, do you think there's more double superfractors out there of different players in this set? I don't know. What's going on here?
I think it's just a quality control issue, an accident. You don't see it much. This is the first time hearing it in the 5 years that I've been back in the card market. And apparently I was reading through some comments, and apparently within the hour, Fanatics had reached out to the people that pulled that and realized that it was an error. What they actually did with kind of like who gets the superfractor or what, maybe they'll trade it for like a wild card taco fractor or something like that. I don't know. But I don't think Izturis is a huge chase anyways. So I think it's just a one-off deal where, it happens, and I think they're going to get a lot of slack for it, which deservingly so. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's not like it's happening every single day. And the fact that you have a lot more, I'm a lot more, this is what people don't realize. People are so disgusted with Fanatics, just their quality. They think it's so bad, but I guarantee you Dappz was not any better. If there's anything that Dappz needed, they needed support. Yeah. They needed help. They needed someone to come in and figure out their crap and make it better. So I'm still hopeful in that. Stuff like, how they respond, how quickly they respond to issues like this is kind of like a positive sign that Fanatics is doing the right things to do it. By no means was this great, but I don't think it's something that you have to say, okay, this is an ongoing issue that, Fanatics needs to clean up their quality control. For the most part, they've been okay.
Fair.
Right. What was I was just watching, it might have been Sports Card Investor. I saw briefly, like for a minute. But they did mention that there have been other instances like this, like other random cards numbered to 25. And, like people pull the same one, 11 out of 25. Right? And, I think it's pretty significant, and it's not to say that it'll happen again, but this is again another pretty high profile mistake that Dappz has made, right? And it shouldn't it's a mistake that could happen, but it shouldn't happen. It should never happen. And a good point that I did listen to off of social media. I think it was Sports Card Investor, but somebody from their group was mentioning, what if this was like the three of us? What if we pulled one of the superfractors and then the other one was pulled by a breaker, and then people are going to be like, yeah, that's a fake one. You guys are making it up because, maybe we didn't pull it on air. We just pulled it like between us just having fun.
Right.
In this instance, it's very lucky because both were pretty high profile breakers and it was on video. So clearly there's two of them out there, right? So I think that, if it was any other instance, if one was on video and one was not, you could run into some very, maybe even Dappz would be questioning, this mistake and saying like, no, denying it that it wasn't a mistake and whatever. Like a lot of things can kind of, make the situation blurred. So, I think Dappz, to be honest, for me, I think Dappz should be taking a lot of flack here and should be owning up. We should be hearing some sort of statement or something. I think this is a pretty significant mistake. Maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion, but I feel like it's a pretty significant mistake.
Sure. You know what? Like when you're talking about, like if it had been the three of us ripping in private and we got the second superfractor, right? You know what our best defense is for that? It's like, why would we make a fake Victor Izturis superfractor?
Out of all, I'm making the Drew Jones.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah,
and that would be more, more questioned, of course. But we're like, you know what? Let's make a fake Victor Izturis 101.
Hey, he's the nephew of, remember Caesar Izturis and my Sierra Izturis? Caesar Izturis, I think, might have played for the Jays, actually.
No.
They were all related?
He's Victor Izturis is his nephew.
Oh,
okay. Interesting. Wow.
Just,
okay.
Random.
I put this. I made a reel on Instagram about this double superfractor of Victor Izturis, and I just want to read a couple of comments. Okay, one is from our friend Refractor Jones, who we interviewed in the pod, and he's been in the hobby for a while. And this is what he said: "This has gone on since 2007. I have a stack of superfractors that shouldn't be out in the hobby world, but I have them.
Oh,
so
man.
it's been going on apparently.
Right.
Yeah, and
So it is a common mistake.
You know why?
Maybe not
Because
common, but-
it's also like Topps prints and sheets, right? So I'm
Right.
sure they don't just print that one superfractor. They have it per sheet. So there's gonna be backups out there, but they're not supposed to be released on the run, right? That's the problem. Is you have some sticky fingers internally. You just never know.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it that way either. And the other comment from 304 Sports Cards, he had the perfect solution on how to deal with this. If Topps is looking for a way to deal with this issue, he says, rock, paper, scissors, and the loser has to destroy theirs. It's the only way.
That's awesome.
I think that's must view TV. They should stream that and then see what happens. They got to destroy it on air. Great idea, 304 Sports Cards. Love that. Pretty funny, I guess, that this has happened. And we'll see if Topps comes up with a statement on how they're going to deal with this. Okay, with that, let's play our interview with Dappz that we had earlier today. All right, we have another special guest on the pod today. He goes by Dappz, and he is the founder of Dappz Sports. If you have TikTok, if you have Instagram, if you have YouTube, I'm sure you've seen some of their very entertaining content, whether it's breaking high-end product, trade-up challenges at card shows, or top 5 lists, which I love. If you've been to the bigger card shows in person, you might have met Dappz as well, making some deals. But today, he's here with us to talk sports cards. So, Dappz, welcome to the podcast.
Clark, pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be with 5 Card Guys. Amazing opportunity I have.
Love it. So, I was very much looking forward to this talk as well. So, I usually start by asking our podcast guests how they got into collecting, but you've built this impressive business in the hobby. So, on top of sharing when you started collecting, I was hoping you can also share when did you figure out this could also be a business? And I'm just wondering, how did it all get started for you?
So I started collecting in the 90s, Pokemon. I was the prime candidate for being, like a Pokemon rookie, a true rookie, right?
Yeah.
And my grandfather was a scout for the New York Jets. So I kind of just, through the family, loved football, was a huge sports fan, played basketball, baseball, golf, every sport growing up that I could possibly play. I always wanted to be outside. And, fast forward to, a couple years ago, the way that Dappz Sports actually started was a YouTube channel. It was me talking directly into camera and just explaining to people, hey, I've bought these cards. I made X amount of money on them. Or, hey, I bought these cards and I lost X amount of money on them.
Right.
And I think that the authenticity and then me just being genuine in the camera, talking about my wins and losses and showing, hey, if you're smarter than me and you make the right picks, you can make money in this.
That's cool. Yeah. I think I first caught wind of you on Instagram and then on TikTok, of course. But so that's that was interesting. You started on YouTube. When did you kind of go from YouTube and to the other social media platforms? Was that shortly thereafter or a bit later?
So Instagram came next, right after YouTube. And then I started to break. And it just, like you said, it took off. And one day after the next, it was more and more of my time and energy that I had to put into the stream.
Right.
And eventually it got to the point where I couldn't really manage myself producing the YouTube videos and being on stream every single day. And my priority was keeping the stream going every single night, being on at 5 p.m. and going until the stream ended. It became an obsession for me where I wanted to make sure that, the little niche community that we had built on Instagram was could rely on Dappz Sports to be live every night at 5 p.m.
Okay. So when you started with your breaks, did you break on Instagram or on different platforms, or was there one that you were really dedicated to?
Dedicated to Instagram at first. Okay. And there was a lot of players in the game, though, at the time. There was Paul Wax had been live, Layden Sports Cards, Mamba, Bullpen.
Yeah.
The guy who really put me on his name was Shap. He runs a company called Pulp Kings out of Florida. Mm-hmm. So he was one of the first accounts I saw where I'm like, wow, breaking down math and going, I could be doing a nice amount of money from my bedroom if I follow this formula, or even if I do 20% of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Cool. Was it hard for you? I like to ask breakers that are big into the game. Like, was it hard for you to find product? I guess that's one of the key challenges to really getting breaking going.
It was in the beginning, and fortunately for me in California, we're very close to this spot called Frank & Sons. Anybody who's not familiar, it's kind of like a flea market / mall, but it's all for collectibles, Pokemon, sports memorabilia, sports cards, Pokemon, anime, Marvel, and they got toys, and they got Funkos, and they got literally everything that a kid could really want.
Right.
So that was 45 minutes away from me. I could always drive there, pick up product, and then I made some relationships online through Instagram with kids in the Midwest. And whereas in Los Angeles, you wouldn't have your blaster boxes and your mega boxes on the shelf ever, these things would sit in Tennessee and Texas and Alabama. Some people just they didn't collect cards like they do on the the shores like New York and LA. So I developed a couple relationships online, and people would hit their local targets and sell them to me and ship them over here.
Cool. That's amazing. Like we said in your intro, you guys have also been pumping out content on social media and just getting your name out there, getting your brand out there. I was wondering how do you come up with ideas for your videos? Because they're at this point really well produced and pretty damn entertaining.
So that's the push and pull of being a creative, right? And I rely tremendously now on a team of people, our editors, our producers, our everybody in the background who you might not see on camera every single day. And a lot of it is, you consume content. We all consume content on our phone, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, and we resonate or we like that particular type of content. And I might see a piece of content that has to do with, let's say, golfing, right? And I'm like, oh, I really like the way that guy edited that video, right? And it's a golf tip. And then I go, how do I do that same exact video, but instead of for golf, how do I do it for sports cards, or how do I do it for Pokemon? So a lot of it comes from just watching other people and what you see with your own eyes that you go, that's a cool piece of content. Nice.
And what I like about your videos, and you kind of mentioned this off the top, it's your authenticity when you got started. And what I'm thinking about exactly is when, for example, when you're ripping, you just don't show us the hits that you guys get, which a lot of channels do, but you also show us your major busts, like the recent video you did with Cassius opening the hobby box of Panini Prism Football. That was hilarious. But you still made that content fun to watch. There's a bit of authenticity and also a bit of fun. On that note, I want to ask you also about the twins, Bo and Sam, who are pretty hilarious themselves and also do that kind of content really well. How did you get connected with those guys?
So, funny story. Remember back in my YouTube days, this is pre Dappz Sports on Instagram breaking.
Yeah.
Bo and Sam DM'd me after seeing one of my YouTube videos and said, my uncle has a Michael Jordan rookie card, BGS 9. Would you be interested in buying it?
Okay.
And that is how we met.
Is that right? Oh, wow. Okay. And when did it get to the point where you're just talking about cards and whether you're interested in buying, selling, to them helping you out with the content creation part of your business?
So Bo and Sam are just true, sports cards addicts, right? Like they love ripping packs, right? And like we all are, we love to rip packs open. And they, soon after I said, no, I'm not interested in purchasing the card. I had actually just purchased a PSA 9 Jordan like a year earlier. So I wasn't in the market. And then it became, hey, can we come buy boxes from you? Because back then, finding blaster boxes and mega boxes was an extreme challenge to find them in a Target or a Walmart. You couldn't find them there.
True.
So now they kind of have this guy who, they could drive an hour. I think they were in Orange County at the time. So they were about an hour away from me. And they were like, we want to rip cards this bad. We'll drive an hour to some guy we met on the internet place, right? To pick up cards. So they drive over and they like I said, they had a genuine love for ripping sports cards. So we connected. and then they would ask questions, and then we just kept talking about TikTok content. And, I was very impressed with the following that both of them had built for themselves. I had been building mine. I was, probably 20% of the following of theirs when I met them. And as we started to talk, they basically pitched me, "Hey, we'll create content for you. We just want to rip some boxes." And it seemed like a pretty fair deal to me at the time. Sure, right. Let's rip some and film it.
Nice. That's pretty funny. And like you're also part of this content creation too still. And you've talked to some big names and influencers on your channel. I saw the Steve Aoki interview. That was pretty cool. And guys in the hobby we all know, like Jeff Wilson, Seablez, and Michael Rubin, of course. Who would you say you had the best time, or at least the most interesting time, talking with about the hobby?
That's a great question. Going to Steve Aoki's house, he's got like the coolest house I've ever been to. It's like the ultimate man cave. There's multiple pools and saunas and cold plunges, and
amazing.
There's a trampoline into a foam pit. It's just and he's got every collectible that you could ever think of. Steve has got the coolest house I've ever, and you're just walking around like, is this Megatron's helmet? You know what I mean? And like sitting there on a piano, and there's this incredible Mickey Mouse Banksy in the living room. There's just really, really, really cool stuff in Steve's house. Yeah. And then he's a true collector of not only cards, but art and toys, figurines, etc. So Steve's got to be up there at the top for me, just because it's authentic, it's genuine. He really loves to collect.
Yeah. And, if you follow Steve Aoki's channel too, he's not ashamed of talking about his collections and anything he breaks open. So it's pretty awesome. More logistics question now. You're in the business of breaking, which we talked about. And that also means you have to always be on top of getting inventory and staying on top of that side of the business. And then you're creating content for your socials, which we also just talked about. So I'm wondering, how do you find time to manage all those things now, especially as your channel gets bigger? And what's your typical day like these days?
Clark, it's difficult, man. It's not easy, and it's been a learning experience for me over the last couple of years. Just prioritizing what's important at any given time, right? Because in the beginning, all I cared about was content, creating content, because I thought that was the driver in the company. But then you realize you need a significant amount of funding to create content, right? It's not cheap. Now there's not to say there's a tremendous amount of TikTokers who do it from their bedroom and are so creative, and I admire them. I'm like, wow, I don't think they put any money into this. They just use what they had around their house and their creative brain just produced this, which I, like I said, admire so much. So it kind of went from, I want to produce content, to breaking, which just took over. And then breaking became what I had to do every single day. And then I hired 1 breaker and 2 breakers and 5 breakers and 10 breakers. Yeah. And then I didn't have to break as much. And then so now, 3 years later, I'm slowly going back to focusing a little bit more on content the way I did it in my early years, which is amazing for me because everything seems to come full circle. And like, this has been my vision from the beginning. Dappz Sports is a media company. We want to produce content that is educational and entertaining for everybody who's watching. And we will continue to do that. And we'll also be in the live shopping game on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, Fanatics Live, eBay, whatever the channel is on. We want, the hat and the sunglasses to be on there, making sure everybody is aware of our brand.
Nice. Yeah. And definitely a pretty distinct logo and branding. You guys have done really well there. I like to ask this question to those who are really invested in the hobby as you guys are. Where do you see the hobby being in like 5 to 10 years? I know that's a hard question, but in general, do you see more growth, less, new companies coming into the space, fanatics dominating everything? What's your thought on the future of the hobby?
I absolutely think there'll be growth in the hobby over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think Michael Rubin invests money to lose it. I think he invests money to produce and make money. I've met him, extremely bright guy, another guy I admire. And I think that the same way they did an incredible job of marketing for the jerseys for NFL, NBA, MLB. Now they're getting WWE and UFC and
Right.
soccer, and they even have NCAA deals now with Alabama and Texas or whatever other teams they have. Right. They did an incredible job of reaching their audience, and now they're going to leverage their audience into the sports card market. And we could see, I think 10x the hobby is a high ceiling,
Yeah.
but even if it's 2 or 3x, it's a lot more people in the hobby, which ultimately will increase the demand for cards. So if you are in supply of low numbered, low pop gem mint 10s or just low numbered cards in general, the value of your cards is going to go up because there's more buyers in the market.
Right.
So I am just I'm excited to see it unfold over the next couple of years. We're over here at Dappz Sports. Listen, sports cards are definitely our focus, but we have visions of 100 streams in a warehouse, not only selling sports cards, but Pokemon, anime, Marvel, Dappz toys, Dappz kicks, Dappz, right? All these different streams will be creating and producing and selling and live shopping.
Yeah, sounds exciting. And we're there with you guys. So we think the sports card industry and the trading card industry in general is a lot of room to grow. I guess one question I didn't think of that I want to ask you now, I think I recently saw that clip where you did meet Michael Rubin, who I hope I'll get to meet one day. How was that? What was that experience like? And just talking with James Harden, I think it was that same clip when you were with Michael Rubin. What was that like?
Yeah, Mike has been super good to us, and with his time and just being the person that he is, a billionaire. Obviously he's hanging out with celebrities all the time.
Yeah,
has major influence in multiple markets, and we asked him if he would come to our shop, and he pulled up, and we did some box breaks and shot some content together. And
nice.
He didn't have to do that. So he really we appreciate that over here at Dappz Sports, and that's why I'm confident that he's going to make the right moves to expand the hobby, increase the audience, increase the people who come into the hobby, and we just want to be a part of over here at Dappz Sports. We try to create affordable price points. So when people do get introduced to one of our live streams, you don't need $10,000 to buy a flawless case. You don't need $3,000 to buy a National Treasures box. We're creating price points, $29, $39.
Nice.
You come in, you buy a team, you buy that you're a fan of, right? And you can enter a break. And maybe you hit a $100 card, maybe you hit a $5 card, but you're not breaking the bank
right
when you come into the hobby. And then if you want to eventually educate yourself and learn more about the hobby, you can slowly take steps to get to that Prism hobby box or that Optic hobby box, whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. Awesome to hear. Pretty cool. We always like to end off our interviews with some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. And I think it'll be a fun way to end this interview. We always like to ask, what's your favorite PC card at the moment? Do you have one?
The one that popped into my head immediately, I have a PSA 10 Kobe Bryant Black Refractor. I think it's 2008 Topps Chrome. It's either 07 or 08.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with 07 Chrome, 04 Chrome, 08 Chrome.
Yeah.
There's a couple years, but 04, 07, and 08 are probably my top three. And I'm on eBay should I buy this one? Should I buy that one? And I'm like, I got it.
Nice. Yeah, pretty iconic, that especially the 07-08 year, for sure. I agree. What card was your biggest hit in one of your breaks?
One of the biggest we hit was a Nebula Joe Burrow 101.
Oh,
and at the time when we hit it, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's not
right.
The 0-2 Joe Burrow, right? That
still early
Browns, right? In the rain. I think that was totally overblown. Joe Burrow lost and this and that. I'm like, it's week 1. He has a hurt calf, and also it's raining, right? So
right.
Taking a lot of heat.
I'm still a big Joe Burrow believer for sure too. So I'm with you. You've been to several card shows. What would you say is the most underrated or the card show that more people should check out?
I don't know if it's underrated, but the card show that everyone should check out is the Dallas Card Show. It's every 60 days. It's the most stable. You're always going to have a good time there. Sometimes the traffic is up, but even when it's not up, there's still plenty of deals to be had. There's people who are from the East Coast who are going to be there, West Coast, because it's kind of central, right? Or the most central you could be in the States. And it's really comfortable because the hotel is at the convention. So you take the elevator down. Cool. There's a restaurant right there. You walk past a restaurant, and that's the showroom floor. So if you're tired and you've had a long day of travel, like you could go into the show early, come back at 1 p.m., take a nap, go back down to the show, right? And
convenient.
What's also really cool about the Dallas Card Show is after the show, when it ends at 6, 7 o'clock at night, the lobby becomes trade night. So it's pretty much
awesome,
not 24-hour, but like a all-day event until 2, 3 in the morning. You can really make trades, buy, sell, trade there. So it's fun. It's a fun event for sure.
Cool. Thanks for that tip. Got to make my way to Dallas sometime. Anyone in the hobby that you would like to still meet or interview? Because we know you've had some big names already, but anyone that you haven't met yet that you would love to talk with about the hobby?
That's a great question. And I'm sure there's somebody who, I haven't chatted with, but when you asked me the question, nobody popped up in my head immediately. I think that I'd love to talk to Post Malone only because of that Magic the Gathering card that he recently purchased.
That's
and
huge.
I'd love to pick his brain. And I'm not even the biggest Magic the Gathering guy, but I'm just like curious. I have so many questions. How he got into it, like how he came up with that number, right? The experience with the guy he bought it from. So
no, that's cool. Well, I don't know if you know this. We're a Canadian podcast, or we're based in Canada, and that one ring card broke open in Whitby, which is just 30 minutes from Toronto. So there's your Canadian connection for you right there.
Love it. Love it.
And on that note, the last question I had for you, and all our podcast guests get to answer this. We make this last one specifically a little bit more Canadian centric. So I was wondering, who do you think is the best Toronto Raptor of all time?
My favorite Toronto Raptor of all time is Damon Stoudemire.
Oh, okay.
I was the biggest Damon Stoudemire fan, and I thought
Mouse,
the Raptors logo was the coolest thing ever when the expansion teams, the Raptors and the Grizzlies came out. I was a big Raptors guy. Yeah. Definitely had a Raptors jersey. And then the two guys who stand out the most to me, and this isn't necessarily, I'm sure somebody from Toronto would disagree, but Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady.
Yes.
Like I think I had a McGrady jersey, the purple one with the black back, right? So they're the guys who I loved as Toronto Raptors the most. But I guess I would probably go with Vince just because he's just such an iconic figure. That dunk he did through the legs was like he started that, right?
For sure. And you know what? If I did a poll of this question, Vince Carter is by far number one on the list. And Damon Stoudemire, that's the first. So you're the first to kind of mention that. So I'm glad you gave a shout out to
Mighty Mouse. Yeah.
Awesome. Dappz, again, I appreciate your time. Love the stuff that you're doing for the hobby. And wish you all the best of luck in the future.
I appreciate you, Clark. Had a great time on here. And, whenever I can be on the show again, you just let me know.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, thanks again to Dappz for coming onto the pod and being gracious with his time. We look forward to connecting with him again in the future. So thank you, Dappz. And it was a very insightful interview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. All right, let's move on to our next segment called Would You Rather? Okay, and in this segment, I'm going to give you guys 2 Would You Rather choices, okay? Questions, and you just got to pick one. That's it. All right, you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, let's start with the easy one. This one's really directed to John. All right. Would you rather have a hobby box and it says 1 hit per box, and it could be relic or auto? We, those hobby boxes.
Yep.
And we joke about it with our friend Will, who always seems to get the relic out of those boxes instead of the auto, which is worth nothing. But would you rather, in this instance, have the relic card or a sticker auto card?
Oh God. Both horrible, but I would still rather take the sticker auto because the relic is completely useless to me.
Multicolor relic or sticker auto card?
Oh man. If the relic was like an oversized, amazing looking patch
logo,
like an NT, like the Blue Jays logo, like something from a game used, and it was very specific, I think I would take.
Okay, whoa, not game used. Not game used.
Oh, it's got to be game used. It can't be.
Okay.
Not even player worn, not tied to any specific, not one of those junk. Yeah, they grabbed it off the rack at like Sporting Life or whatever, or Dick's Sporting Goods.
Store, yeah.
No, but if it was a pretty crazy patch, game used, and if we're talking in the future, like Fanatics can specify what game or put a QR code signifying what game this was from, I think that I would take that over sticker. At that point, I take that over sticker. But the way it is now, we know the Topps release. Like you usually get a little white napkin. Like that's useless. I don't want that. maybe it has a stripe in it or something. Like no, I don't. That's
right.
And it's not even game used. Like or maybe they are game used, but
just player worn.
The size of it is like a little penny. There's a little penny window. It's useless.
All right, yeah, sticker auto for John.
Yeah.
Hyung.
I'm going auto for sticker auto for sure. I can't stand relics. Yeah, it might change. With Fanatics in the game, I'm excited to see their relic game.
Yeah, they got to up their game for sure. All right, so sticker auto sweep as it is now. Okay, all right. Number 2, would you rather have that Victor Izturis Bowman Chrome superfractor card that we were just talking about, and you found out that there's another copy of that same superfractor? Or would you have one copy of the Topps Chrome Superfractor of Victor Izturis if there was one?
Would you rather have one of those copies or just the one of one and nobody knew about it?
No, you know that there's 2 out there. Would you have that? So would you still have that Bowman Chrome Superfractor?
Well, in this situation, because Victor Izturis is kind of like a no-name guy, he's getting all the attention in the world. So at least Fanatics gonna do something about it. I'm excited. Maybe a white box or something nice. Whereas if you had that one of one, it's like no one would even know you had that, and there wouldn't be any love. Even though the right answer is like if it was a relevant player like Ethan Salas, I'd rather have the Ethan Salas solo, right? But in this situation, I'm seeing some leverage opportunity with Fanatics here because Fanatics needs to step up their game here.
Yeah.
Smart. John, you too? Or
what are you gonna do with the Victor Superfractor, huh?
No, yeah,
it's gonna sit in your common cards.
Clark, was your question specific to Victor Izturis, or was it like just generally?
Well, you know what? Now that Hyung mentioned this second scenario, I wonder if it should be an Ethan Salas. Topps Chrome Superfractor. There's only one. There's no
Bowman
mistake
Chrome?
there.
Yeah,
but it's a Bowman Chrome. Let's switch it up. Ethan Salas. Would you change your mind, Hyung?
Yeah, I would change my mind. I would just want the one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's worth more.
Topps Chrome.
Not Topps Chrome, the Bowman Chrome.
No. I'm saying the Topps Chrome Superfractor 101.
Okay, if Ethan Salas, like when he makes the majors, then that would make sense. But a Bowman first Chrome, okay. Even let's just say he made the big leagues, had his Topps Chrome Superfractor out. Yeah, I would just have that 101.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm with Hyung. If it's this, I think this instance was so high profile. And very specific. I think if there are repeats in the future, it'll be a lot less newsworthy. So yeah, for sure, take the one superfractor.
I think I'm gonna go Bowman Chrome. Even if one other dude has it,
really,
I might have to go for a superstar first Bowman Chrome like that.
Oh, you're saying Ethan Salas first Bowman versus his Topps Chrome. But there was 2?
But there's 2 first Bowman Chromes, yes.
I see. I see what you're saying.
No, I might go Bowman Chrome in that sense. Like, because that's why I was confused with the whole Topps Chrome, but yeah.
So Bowman Chrome?
Bowman Chrome.
Everyone?
Put me on Bowman Chrome.
Because that's a huge card, man. He's a huge player, huge card.
That'd be huge. Even if there's 2, it's a huge card.
Hey, all I know is for somehow Fanatics and Topps managed to make negative cards, like 1 out of 0, -1. So there's nothing wrong with 2 out of 1. You know what I mean?
That's
it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense.
They broke all the rules now. So yeah, I'm with you. All right. Okay, that was a confusing one. My bad. Number 3. Would you rather have a pack of cards and you open it up and they're all off-centered, or they all had a dinged corner, really bad dinged corner?
These are just rough. I'm gonna say, man, how bad's the corner?
It's like someone dropped it and hit the corner right on the floor.
Corners are tough for me too. Like corners are like, that's the first thing you look at, right? But I'm gonna say
they're really off-centered. Unless they're really
off-centered. Well, no, OC is probably the most eye appealing, right? So I'm gonna say you definitely don't want all off-centered cards unless you're a collector. I know some guys that collect like really bad off-centered cards. I don't know why, but I'm gonna go with ding corners because I've had some nice cards that I thought were gonna grade really well, only to find out that it had a ding corner and it graded like a 4 on the corner. Oof. But it still looked it's still in a nice. One touch.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I've heard that these companies can replace your card if it's like really poorly off-centered. That may or may not be true.
That is true.
Okay.
That is true. Yeah.
So then for me, it's easy. I'm taking the off-center because, man, dinged corners out of a pack, that bothers me. Like, dinged corners bother me so much. And off-centers, like, I mean, this is battle of like the most brutal. Like that. They're both brutal.
Pick your poison.
Let's not get it twisted. But I think the tiebreaker is the fact that you can submit your off-center card to get it replaced. Now, if it's a Victor Izturis superfractor, who knows?
Right. Well, I didn't know that about off-center cards, so I guess I'm going to go off-center as well. Okay, number 4. I got 2 more. Would you rather spend $5,000 on as many Young Guns rookie cards of a hot prospect you can buy, the same one, or one SP Authentic Future Watch auto card that was worth $5,000?
Oh,
easy.
I know his answer. Yeah.
You know me. What's my answer, John?
Yeah, it's 1.
Yeah, it's absolutely 1.
Yeah.
Would you rather work 1 hour or 50 hours?
Think about the upside, though. Young Guns.
Yeah. I and don't get me wrong. I played that game. I've done really well. It's a lot of work. Yeah. It could go the other way too, right? Like there's things where you're just like, what was I thinking? Why do I have like 100 Young Guns cards, right? Like, and then it's like trying to liquidate them. Hey, I got a lot of Luis Robert base. If you guys ever need one, negotiating a deal kicker or anything, throwing that Luis Robert. Yeah, I mean, for me, I like dealing with bigger cards. I think you could make just as much profit or cleaner profit off one transaction. And yeah, I'm just all about the rare cards in general. But don't get me wrong. Hey, there's nothing wrong with the multiple cards of base or, even I did it with refractors and X-fractors. They do really well. Like there were times I was biting Tatis refractors and X-fractors for $15 and grading them for $15. And then, like anything can happen from there if you have multiples, right? You could do really well. So there's that game. But yeah, I'm going in this scenario, big $5,000 card.
Yep.
Okay.
I am certainly a collector over a flipper, so it's an easy one. It's a single card for me too. To own the Future Watch of a hot prospect, Future Watch auto. Yeah, I think I as a collector, I would so much more enjoy that than having 100 base Young Guns.
Yeah, me too. It's a sweep, but I was wondering if I could get Hyung because I know he's played that game before.
That game, yeah. It's just not. Yeah,
not for you now.
Yeah,
okay.
That's so 2021.
It's funny. I put all these Instagram reels of like what the price action was, especially in the 2021 season when everything was super inflated, and then how it just all drops.
And people go nuts, huh?
Well, I got this one comment saying like, what whoever sold in 2021 won. That's all.
Yeah.
It's like, they are the winner of life, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then and they're like, oh man, the 2021 was a year, like other comments like that. And then I commented back saying, "Yeah, the good old days of 2021."
Yeah, that's how I feel right now. Way back
Remember
in
those
my
days?
yeah.
Two years ago, man, those were great times. Okay, last one. Would you rather enter a break by choosing 3 different teams that each have one great rookie on the team? Okay, so you're choosing 3 teams and they all have at least one really great rookie. Or would you buy one team for the same cost of those 3 teams, but they have one superstar rookie?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go 3 teams.
Oh, really?
I'm going to go 3 teams because I've gambled both ways.
Right.
And it's a easier way to lose with 3. You lose big. You get kicked in the nuts pretty hard when you're chasing that one big superstar and you don't hit anything. It's a hefty bill. But 3 like if I'm breaking Bowman Chrome, for instance, 3 teams would be a great, like 3 solid teams would be a great break. I would actually enjoy that. You'd have a lot of cards that you would receive. And if you have a good box or a good break, you could totally, make your money back. But that big chase is like, you're just throwing things up in the air and seeing what sticks. Right. So,
right.
Yeah, to me, it's easy. I've done both. Don't get me wrong. And there are times when I'll still do both in the future. I will still chase after that superstar if I really like that superstar, right? So yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I have 0 breaking experience, so I gotta lean on Hyung here. I think the 3 makes a lot of sense. But screw it. I want Connor Bedard. I'm going single player.
Chicago Blackhawks. All your money on the Blackhawks.
Yeah. Let's go Bedard.
Yeah. All right. Wow, this is like upside down scenario. I thought it would be Hyung saying one thing and John saying the other, but I'm really confused. I'm going with 3 teams too. I'm more risk averse when it comes to breaking, so that's easy for me. All right, another fun edition of Would You Rather. We'll play again sometime soon in the near future. Let's end off the show with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this is where each of us will put 2 cards up for debate, and we will, we'll just debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, Hyung, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm going to go back to baseball with Acuna. He I didn't know we were talking before about Acuna and Betts and how it was really close. But I think Acuna over the last 2 weeks, he's kind of separated himself. This guy has 139 runs. Yeah, he's leading in hits, leading in runs, 206 hits. He's about to 40-40, but maybe even 40-70. He needs 1 more home run and 3 more bags to 40-70.
70.
So,
oh my God.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. And we mentioned this actually earlier before the season that with the new rule, with the rules of picking off the first, and also the pitch clock, that you're going to see people who steal more bags more valuable, right? And we're seeing it, right? So I'm going to stick with Acuna in that sense, just because he's the hot topic and Ohtani's hurt. So, and I'm a huge Acuna collector in the first place, so. We're going to go back to a Sapphire. I think that's one of my favorite cards, period. The Bat Down Sapphire, 2018, PSA 10. I know Card Ladder said there was one sold for $2,000, but I think that was an error. The last sold, I believe, was $3,750. So I'm going to pair that up with the Bowman Chrome Green Shimmer Auto. Okay, Green Shimmer. I know you guys don't like your offsets, your offset parallels, but it's a Bowman Chrome Green Shimmer Auto of Acuna 2017 out of 99. And that's a BGS 9.5. So that sold for $3,700. So $3,700 is your absolute budget. You got 2 cards, the Acuna Sapphire Bat Down PSA 10 or a Bowman Chrome Green Shimmer Auto BGS 9.5 True Gem.
Ooh. I'm gonna say, I think Acuna Sapphire is iconic enough like it can hold its own. You know, I think especially in the last 12 months, Bowman First has absolutely completely taken off. Like enough to the point where I think like people don't even recognize what Topps flagship is anymore in terms of like flagship image, that whole thing. So I think everybody is just so on the Bowman First train. So investment wise, I think you can make very serious arguments about the green shimmer. But, you know, if we're talking same money, I honestly think they both have legs to go up in value equally. So like if the green shimmer is one day $6,000, I think the Sapphire will be $6,000, right? So if that's the case, and it's pretty 50-50, and you know, it's give me the Sapphire all day, because as a collector, I want to be looking at that Sapphire. It's one of the sickest modern cards of all time. So Sapphire for me.
Interesting. In this market, I got to go by my principles. You
Yeah,
got to go
Bowman
for the
Chrome.
numbered. You got to go Bowman Chrome. Even though it's a shimmer, I'll look the other way. But numbered to 99, 2017 Bowman. Yeah, that's easy for me. Although, as a collector, as like in terms of eye appeal, the Sapphire looks way better.
Yeah.
The Sapphire is one of the most beautiful cards
It is.
in
Amazing.
modern day. I think it's the most beautiful modern day card.
100%.
But I do like Acuna's auto, like in his 2017. I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough one for me. I used to have a BGS 1010 refractor auto of Acuna, which I did well with that. So I ended up selling it, but that was one card that I regret having. And normally I would say Sapphire, but I'm on the Bowman Chrome train lately. So although I believe that Sapphire PSA 10, that card went up to 10K at one point. So I don't think that green shimmer has ever gone up to that at the same time, right? So I think the Sapphire will have a lot of potential, but I think the Bowman Chrome auto is just his autos are so rare in 2017, and I think over time, Bowman Chrome's going to pick up some steam with Acuna, especially if he keeps on repeating these seasons for the next 3-4 years. I think you'll have a really nice investment in Bowman Chrome autos for Acuna.
Nice. It's a good one.
Nice.
Johnny.
So in honor of Friday's episode, talking about WWE license, we're going to go, who would you rather invest in? Because the three of us, we don't collect WWE. So if we do, I'm sure it'll be one card or one person. So if you were to invest, Hulk Hogan or The Rock?
Hulk Hogan or The Rock?
And I don't have much research done, but I kind of have a gist of pricing. I don't want to reveal it yet because I want to kind of hear. I don't want to sway your decision based on pricing.
I have a feeling Rock outsells Hulk Hogan.
So we're talking about any card or
Any card, just like, you know, like going
Collectibility.
after a character. Yeah, going after a character if you're going to invest.
man?
For me, I'll answer it. For me, it's easy because I grew up in the Hulk Hogan era. Rock I was out of wrestling, and I don't love him right now. So yeah, I'm gonna say Hulk Hogan. I think there's a lot of nostalgia for in the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s for kind of like WWF. I want to say not even WWE, with Andre the Giant, Jake the Snake, and Hulk. Hulk was the man, Ultimate Warrior, all those guys. So Hulk Hogan is definitely means more to me. So I'm gonna go Hulk. I wasn't a huge Rock fan, to be honest. So, but I guarantee you, Rock outsells Hulk.
Yeah. For the same reasons, I grew up with Hulk Hogan, and the only thing that's stopping me from going Hulk Hogan all the way is Dwayne. Like Dwayne Johnson is such a huge celebrity right now, right? So for investment purposes, there's potential there, But if we're talking about wrestling cards, I don't know if wrestling card collectors care as much, that The Rock is also a huge actor. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna care about his wrestling career more so. And just talking with Sports Card Nobody, Shyne, in one of our past podcast interviews, there's a lot of vintage wrestling collectors that are hardcore. And I think there's some
I can see that.
Investment chances there too. So I'm going with Hulk. I was just like looking at Card Ladder. There's a yellow and blue border one from the Wrestling All-Star series that you get from the magazine. And his
that's more vintage,
September
right?
2022 is more vintage. Yep. September 2022, it last sold a BGS 9.5 True Gem Plus for almost 53,000. So there are some Hulk Hogan cards in really good condition that do have value as well. So
for sure.
I'm going to go with Hulkamania.
So, very small sample size, but it appears as though Hulk Hogan outsells pricing wise The Rock by about 50%. So his 2015 Refractor PSA 10.
Interesting.
Hulk Hogan went for $80, $85. The Rock Refractor PSA 10 goes for around 50. And then more recently, The Rock's Kaboom Raw. There is a Kaboom, I didn't know that, but there's a Kaboom. Raw went for around 900, and then the Hulk Hogan goes for around 15. To be fair, the Hulk Hogan image is the iconic him ripping his yellow shirt. So the eye appeal on Hulk Hogan's Kaboom is amazing. So, I'm going to, for us, we're going very specific card, right? So if you're going to pick Hulk Hogan, I think you're going to pick one of the, whatever the yellow border, his original, quote unquote rookie card.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the card to chase if you're going to go for one. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to say I love the prospect of The Rock because you mentioned about the volatility because he's in Hollywood and there's a chance for upticks. And we've seen Hulk Hogan's, I think, autograph in this year's Prism or Dappz Chrome. One of the two products I remember seeing Hulk Hogan's autograph. I don't think anyone outside of IP autographs, I don't think Dwayne Johnson has signed any cards in products. So I think if that one day changes later on, I think The Rock's autograph is going to be a different story once that hits the market. So for me, I think specifically to the autograph, and maybe it'll never happen, who knows, but for that reason, I'm going to pick The Rock.
All right, I feel like that's a classic John answer. It sounded like he was going Hulk all the way, and then pivots last second to choosing The Rock.
John, man.
Should have known. I get fooled every time, though. All right, my pick one to end off the episode. Okay, you got $3,500, $3,500. All right. Julio Rodriguez, we talked about his 2019 Bowman Chrome Blue Refractor, first auto, number to 150, of course. BGS 9.510. Same grade, same blue refractor, but for Mookie Betts going about $3,500 as well. So essentially, would you rather spend it on Mookie Betts or Julio Rodriguez? Same blue refractor, BGS 9.5. Who are you going for?
Man, this one's tough, but I'm gonna say Mookie Betts. I think the value is there, and I think his pricing is gonna consistently go up, where Julio's can go down at times, depending on his career. At the end of the day, Julio still has to play, whereas Mookie has 8 seasons ahead of Julio. Mookie's been doing it for 8 seasons, right? So we always see that dip around that 3rd or 4th year of a player, and you see the consistency of kind of okay, is this guy going to pan out? What type of player is he? Is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? What's his trajectory in terms of his WAR, his career WAR? Where is he at now? Mookie's at a 60, just under 65 WAR, and he just turned 30. So he's a type of player that could be 100, near 100 WAR if he keeps healthy and keeps playing the way he is. And that's a select group of category, right? I can't say that with Julio until probably 2030, to be honest, right? You won't be able to say that. So I think there will be buying periods, and I could be wrong, where Julio just absolutely takes off and you'll never see that blue at that price again, because I'm sure that blue price on Julio is way down, right? And the blue on the Mookie is probably relatively up year to year. So technically, if you're looking at it a year to year perspective, I think the right play is to buy Julio based on the market trends. But I think in general, the better buy is the Mookie Betts.
Okay. Just to answer your question, Julio Rodriguez, his blue refractor last summer in July sold for $8,000.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's
a retraction of like 70%.
Yeah,
or 60%.
I think it's easy for me. It's gonna be the Mookie as well. I agree with Hyung. I think the value is there. The J-Rod is tempting because it is a quote unquote a color match, kind of. But the Mookie, it's not a color match, but I think the blue would be pretty significant because when all is said and done, I think the Dodgers Mookie is going to be the iconic Mookie that everybody thinks of in terms of his imprint in baseball. And Mookie at this point, with Trout continually getting injured, like he could go down as the dude of our generation. I think Hyung might have mentioned this in a pod previously. I don't know where I heard it from. Maybe, I think it was pretty much. I think it was Hyung that mentioned it, and I'm kind of starting to believe that, right? Because the guy, he doesn't get injured. Like he's putting up monster numbers. He's mashing home runs, and maybe he may not catch Trout statistically and WAR and et cetera, but he's gonna have championship rings under his belt. Like I don't know. So I think there's a chance Mookie can catch Mike Trout in terms of legacy, or maybe, go past Trout, maybe. So I think that temptation and that prospect is huge. So and Mookie is so undervalued for who he is and how much of a stud he is, and clearly going to be a Hall of Famer. So it's Mookie Betts all the way.
Yep. The one thing that bothers me right now, at least, is like, what else does Mookie have to do to get more love? You know what I mean? Is he going to be one of these guys that just doesn't get the appreciation he deserves fully?
Right.
And if that's the case, then there's going to be a cap on his value, right? Like I said, J-Rod's blue refractor sold for $8,000 last July. Mookie's blue refractor sold for $5,000 last July. Yeah, so it's gone down too, not as much obviously, but like it's kind of sideways a little bit, and do we have to wait till he gets into the Hall, like until people realizes like what he's accomplished in his career, right? So that's what kind of makes me hesitant to, not to buy Mookie cards, because I would love it and I think it's a safe investment, but do I want the J-Rod card and for the volatility, because there's still a hype. He's 22, he could take that next level. Do I think there could be a spike where I could flip it, more in the short to midterm? So that being said, I'm not a risk taker, so I'm going to go with Mookie.
You just did it, John.
You fooled.
You John'd it.
Yeah, I had to. But that's tempting. You know what? I'll take the risk with just a refractor of J-Rod, not the blue level. Maybe $1,000, $1,500 I'll spend on J-Rod, and I'll get my kicks that way. But when it comes to blue, yeah, I'm gonna go stick with Mookie Betts. He's incredible. All right. Thanks again to all those who are tuning in to our podcast week after week. We appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Dappz. Thanks again to Dappz as well, and we'll see you next week for a brand new episode. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.